Ever wanted to know how to run an effective Session Zero? Ever wanted a list of potential Session Zero topics? Then stay tuned for today's episode. Hello and welcome to RPG PhD. I'm Dr. Ben, and today we're going to talk about one of the most important things that a game master should do before starting a tabletop RPG campaign: Session Zero. Session Zero is a vital first step for a campaign that will not only help create a cohesive and enjoyable experience for everyone involved, but also sets the tone for the entire campaign. First, what is Session Zero? Session Zero is a pre-game meeting or discussion among players and the Game Master to set expectations and establish guidelines for the upcoming campaign. It typically takes place before the first official game session and allows for character creation, rule clarification, and discussion of the campaign's themes, tone, house rules, among a myriad of other potential topics. Why should you have a Session Zero? Session Zero is an essential part of preparing a successful RPG campaign because it helps to establish a shared understanding of the game, its mechanics, and the expectations of all players involved. By having a Session Zero, players and the GM can ensure that everyone is on the same page and reduce the likelihood of misunderstandings, conflicts, or uncomfortable situations arising during gameplay. Who should be at a Session Zero? Ideally, all players and the GM should be present at the session. This allows for everyone to contribute their ideas, voice their concerns, and come to a consensus about the campaign's direction. If a player cannot make it, they should be encouraged to catch up on the discussions and decisions made during the Session Zero before the first game. How should you run a Session Zero? There is no one-size-fits-all approach to running a Session Zero, but some important points to cover during the meeting include introducing the campaign setting, tone, and any specific themes or content warnings that may be present, clarifying any house rules or custom mechanics that will be used, discussing character creation guidelines and expectations such as party composition, backstory relevance, and character restrictions, establishing table etiquette and expectations for player behavior, respecting other players' boundaries, game scheduling, and avoiding disruptive behavior, while encouraging open communication and addressing any concerns or questions that arise during this discussion. In addition to setting expectations, a Session Zero allows the players to collaborate with the GM in building the world and story. This can include discussing the setting, creating character backstories, and establishing connections between the character and the GM's world or campaign setting. By having a collaborative approach, players can feel invested in the world and story, and the GM can use their ideas to build a richer and more engaging campaign. Another benefit of a Session Zero is it allows the players to discuss any potential issues that may arise during the game. This includes topics such as player expectations, playstyle preferences, and potential sensitive issues such as portrayals of excessive violence or sex, which helps to ensure that everyone is comfortable with the game's content and establishes boundaries around what is and is not acceptable. Now, every game table and group is different, and every RPG has their own set of specific considerations that don't necessarily apply to all games. Not all of these topics necessarily need to be discussed, but in an effort to be more comprehensive, I've tried to cover some of the most common topics that might arise in a Session Zero. If you have others, please share those in the comments below, and as I try to cite my sources, you can check those out. They're linked in the description below. Rules considerations. Whatever system you're playing, it will usually have rules, and not every table uses the same rules for the same game, at least not entirely. In the context of a Session Zero, it is crucial to examine what rules you'll be using, what deviations, house rules, or homebrew you will utilize, and address some of the unspoken rules of the game. Which rule books or supplements do you allow for your games? Is Rule Zero in effect, or something else? How do you solve rules debates? Does the game pause to look up rules, or does the GM make a quick ruling to keep the game flowing and the rule is looked up later? It's important to discuss experience gains and level up or advancement mechanics with your players if those apply to your system. This means deciding how players can earn XP, whether they need to slay monsters or simply overcome obstacles, reach a certain story point, and what happens if they defeat an encounter non-violently. Addressing unannounced dice rolls and rolls against one another are also key considerations in establishing a smooth gameplay experience. Players should be clear on whether or not they have the freedom to make rolls when they feel it's necessary, and how they should approach resolving in-character disputes using dice rolls. It's imperative to determine whether player versus player is allowed, including whether tension between characters, arguments between characters, or even combat between two or more PCs is allowed. PC secrets are another topic that could be addressed during Session Zero. Determine whether players are allowed to keep in-game secrets from other players or characters, who decides what secrets are allowed, and whether it is only the privilege of the GM. Min-maxing is something else that comes up, something to consider, and it's essential to review your stance on optimized characters, even if your character concept or theme is ridiculous, or if you're playing a campaign that is more role-play than role-play. By discussing these and other rules-related topics during Session 0, you can ensure that everyone is on the same page and has a clear understanding of the rules and expectations for the campaign. Campaign considerations. Session 0 is also a great time to discuss player buy-in. It's important that everyone is invested in the campaign and wants to see it succeed. This means that everyone should be willing to work together, avoid disrupting the game, and be willing to put in effort outside the sessions to help the campaign progress. When discussing the narrative of the game during Session 0, it's necessary to consider the tone and genre of the campaign. Will it be an epic fantasy adventure, a political intrigue story, or a sci-fi western? This can help set the stage for the players and give them an idea of what to expect in terms of the overall story. Another vital topic is to discuss the expected length of the campaign and how many sessions are planned. This can help the players plan their schedules and make sure they are committed to the campaign. Additionally, players should be encouraged to create characters that work well with the rest of the party, but also discuss how to handle it if a player character changes over the course of a campaign and no longer fits well with the group. If the game world is custom or you have new players, it's crucial to share information about the world and its defining characteristics. This could include discussing potential downtime activities for characters, in-game politics and factions, and the main driver for your campaign. It's also critical to define what it means to be an adventurer in the setting, whether they're seen as heroes or troublemakers by NPCs, and discuss the major NPCs at play in the setting. During Session 0, the GM should also decide if characters will start at first level or higher. The player should also be given a context on what their character knows versus what the player knows, and how they can access information their characters should know. Overall, discussing the narrative and context of the game during Session 0 can help set expectations and create a more immersive experience for the players. It also helps to ensure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to the overall story and world. Expectation considerations. In Session 0, it's essential to have a discussion about the expectations for the campaign. This includes details such as how often the group will meet and what style of the game the campaign will be. For example, will the campaign be a heavily role-playing focused experience, a hack-and-slash adventure, or something in between, or something completely different? Discussing these expectations is crucial as it ensures everyone is on the same page and prevents misunderstandings down the line. It's essential to ensure everyone has a chance to contribute in a way that they enjoy. This is especially important for large parties as it can be difficult for everyone to have a chance to shine. It's also relevant to discuss with each player why they are there, what they hope to get out of the game, and how the GM can meet those hopes and expectations. Player agency is another serious topic to cover during Session 0. The DM should discuss their stance on player agency and how they will handle situations like possession or character transformation. How do you handle NPCs and creatures or situations that take away player agency? Additionally, it's paramount to discuss meta-knowledge and determine to what extent it is allowed at the table. The GM should establish their stance on murder hobo behavior and their preferred GM style, including their approach to rules, improvisation, homebrew content, and focus on story versus mechanics. Other topics that should be discussed during Session 0 include spotlight sharing and player narrative authority. The possibility of character death, how death is handled, and whether or not it is permanent should also be part of this discussion. Lastly, it's helpful for the GM to share any personal annoyances they have as a GM with the players, but to do so in a constructive manner that informs them and helps them avoid issues later on. Character considerations. Another important topic is character creation. It's a good idea to set up some guidelines for what types of characters are allowed in the campaign. For example, do you want to allow evil characters or limit the races or species or classes that can be played? This can help ensure that the group fits together well and everyone is happy with the party dynamic. This has come up quite a bit in the comments section of my video on It's What My Character Would Do, which you can check out here. An overwhelming number of commenters noted and feel strongly that sorting out character motivations, interactions, and building a team of adventurers during Session 0 is a key component to making games run smoothly and heads off future issues. I agree that it's a great preventative measure that solves all sorts of problems. It's imperative to discuss character creation as a group. This involves considering creation questions that allow players to flesh out their character's motivations, backstory, and relationships with other players in the party. Furthermore, it's vital to discuss any potential backstory issues that might cause problems with other characters and how to resolve those issues before the game begins. This ensures that the characters are cohesive and can work together. The next step is to decide on the creation stats, including whether to allow standard array, point by, or rolling for stats, or whatever it is for your system. The rolling for stats, it's essential to establish rules or house rules for doing so that everybody's on the same page. The group should also determine how heavily alignment will be featured in the game, if at all, and whether it will be prescriptive or descriptive. Additionally, it's essential to discuss what can cause a character to change alignment and the potential consequences of such a change. Sensitive topics considerations. It's crucial to discuss the tone of the campaign. Is the campaign going to be gritty and realistic, or will it be more lighthearted and fantastical? Will there be mature themes such as extreme violence or sexual content, or should the campaign stay family-friendly? During a Session 0, it's crucial to discuss the rating of your game, whether it's G, PG, PG-13, R, NC-17, etc., and any expectations or limitations that come with it. Additionally, the topic of sex could be addressed, including the GM's and players' preferences for love interests, romantic entanglements, or sexual relationships in the game. In addition to expectations, it's crucial to address player discomfort and determine how to handle situations where something happens in-game that makes a player uncomfortable. This may include implementing a timeout system, having a table discussion, or using other safety tools. It's also a good idea to discuss any topics that could cause strong negative emotional responses or sensitive topics that players may want to avoid. This can help ensure everyone is comfortable during the game and allow for a more inclusive environment. Be sure to approach this conversation with sensitivity and respect during your Session 0. Gender roles could also be discussed, including any patriarchal or matriarchal cultures that may exist in your setting. The GM should also bring up any races or cultures in the game that have different gender norms, as well as creatures, deities, and magic items that can change gender. Also, you might want to discuss the possibilities of attraction or sexual orientation of both the PCs and NPCs. Are there cultural stigmas on select sexual orientations that span across multiple races? The topic of rape and sexual assault should also be discussed, including the GM's stance on whether characters are allowed to have had these experiences in their background, or if it can happen to NPCs but not PCs. The GM should also determine if characters are allowed to perform these acts and whether it is done only off camera. Prejudice and racism should be addressed, including whether there is prejudice in the fantasy setting in which cultures, religions, or governments are more accepting or xenophobic. Slavery should also be discussed, including whether PCs can expect to encounter enslaved NPCs, if PCs can become enslaved, or if it only happens to NPCs. The GM should also determine if slavery can be a part of the PC's background and how slavery is viewed in the game by various cultures. Remind players that these topics are being discussed now to avoid discomfort later on so that everyone can have a fun game. Regarding sensitive topics, it's usually a good form to keep the lines of communication open during a campaign. Player behavior considerations. One of the crucial aspects of a Session 0 is setting up a code of conduct for the campaign. This helps ensure that everyone is aware of the expected player behavior and can prevent future conflicts. You might also want to discuss how to handle any interpersonal conflict or disagreement at your table. There's also the issue of cell phones and digital devices. The group should decide whether they are allowed or need to be kept in a basket at the door or some other place. Player attention is another potential issue that could be addressed. The group could discuss how to handle players who are consistently distracted and delaying the game. Another meaningful consideration is disruptive topics such as religion, politics, sports, or sex. The GM and players should set boundaries and discuss them to avoid disruptive discussions that can negatively affect the game session. Player absences could also be addressed during the Session 0. The group could set expectations for how many players can be absent before canceling a session and establish a minimum number of players needed to run a session. It's also essential to discuss backup plans for when too few players show up, such as downtime activities, one-shots, board games, video games, or movies. What other rules and behavior expectations do you have for your players at your table? Other considerations. One thing I like to do for longer campaigns is bring the characters together organically. In other words, we don't start together in Session 1, we get to see how everyone meets. This allows the player to find their character, or at least have some experience with them, before they meet other party members. And it allows the story to bring the characters into the narrative. I know some GMs who also like to run a short session after the Session 0 discussions, and this effectively does the same thing, which is bring the party together and let everyone spread their wings a little before the main story comes into focus, or as a tie-in to the main story. You can also produce a one-page or more overview of the campaign, its unique features, as well as guidance for character creation, house rules, or other information you think might be useful for your players. If you use safety tools, these can also be included here. Additionally, the document provides information on group factions, allowing players to understand the various components that exist within the campaign world and how they may interact with them. This concise guide is designed to provide all necessary information for players to understand the campaign and its world, while also ensuring that everyone is on the same page in terms of expectations and boundaries. Setting rules, behavior, campaign, player, sensitive topic, and game expectations ensures that everyone is on the same page about the game and campaign. If players come to the table without any expectations defined, it can lead to mismatched expectations, which isn't fun for anyone. By planning and running a Session 0 before the campaign, everyone can start the adventure off on the right foot and ensure a smoother gaming experience. I hope you've enjoyed this video on Session 0. Please let me know in the comments below your thoughts about Session 0 and any other specific issues you like to discuss in your group during those sessions. If you find this content useful, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.